There we go.
Okay, here's my screen. Here's the page. Um,
What does yours say for today? Nice.
yeah, but I'm about to go to sleep soon. I'm not sure I experienced anything new.
Well, maybe for today, like for the start of today. Mine was awful.
Huh. My lucky time is 12 p.m. Pink is my lucky color. Lucky
Yeah,
number is 11. I don't know what it means. How can I use this, huh, Stephanie?
I don't the colors and numbers is new to me, but I could see your chart if we had that, but the other APIs the worst.
It's all right. Um, so what's nice about this is you can rearrange the layout. What's bad about mobile is it gets in the way of scrolling. So I'm gonna disable drag and drop on phones. I'm gonna be doing that tonight. So you're gonna be seeing some merge activities. So you probably want to do a tomorrow git pull origin master.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you want to go to your own branch. If you don't have the new branch, if you don't have your own branch yet, you can create the branch, or you can just, if you already have the branch, it'll be like old, whatever old branch name is. You go there, and then once you're on your old branch or your new branch, you're gonna merge the master to your own branch.
Oh,
And
okay.
if
Because I know
any
we have to
conflict,
check out from the master though to grab it, right?
yeah. Good point. After you pull in the master, you have to make sure you're in the master.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's another step after this. Yeah. So you pull in the master, make sure you're in the master, then you go into your old branch or a new branch, and then you merge the master into your branch. This is how I remember it. You see git merge master, mass this branch right here that you type out is going to go to the current branch you're in. That's what's merging in.
Yeah. Yeah, and we've got the screenshots from TJ's thing, so.
Mm-hmm.
You got to accept it, blah, blah, blah. And then you can push that branch you're on onto the server, GitHub, and then on GitHub, you can merge it from there. So there's merging at GitHub and then merging on your computer. Perfect. I have to tell you that because you expect it because I'm going to make some changes tonight.
Okay.
Because on the phone, I noticed that when I try to scroll down, instead I ended up like dragging parts of the screen. So it's gonna be enabled on desktop, but it's gonna be disabled on desktop. Disable on mobile. Going through the code, going through the layout, first of all, you see that there's a title, there's a greeting with my name on it, and that name can be changed by going to the name settings at the top here, clicking this, open the name module, calling it wing number 2. For example, it'll be changed to wing 2. The horoscope, you can change it by clicking the horoscope at the top, opening the horoscope module, and then using a date picker. This part is called a date picker when you click it, and then you select one of the dates. You can even select the year. Let's just say I'm born in 1960. I'm not born in 1960, but let's say I am. I click OK, and you always have to press save. Keep in mind the save button. I will correlate it with the code. And then this section will be changed to Scorpio or whatever. And then same thing for the playlist. If you first start off, there is no playlist. You won't have these 3 sections. If you first start off, there's no settings at all. You only have this setting, this section. I'll show you in a bit. You click playlist, and then you search up a song that you might like. Just making it up. Nah, I don't know how to spell her name.
Maybe Rexa, you know you want to.
Okay, Bebe Rexha. And then you select the artists that you think might interest you. I'll just select the first 3 and then you select save. And they'll generate these songs from those 3 artists, their top tracks. Sometimes it'll be 30, sometimes it'll be less than 30 because it pulls off from the top tracks. They might have too little of top tracks to count up to dirty tracks.
So where is all of this starting for your JS files?
I will show you. I will show you. I just got to show general interaction. And just to say, this is a fresh browser. This is your very first time visiting this layout. So there is nothing saved to the local storage. How do you reset the storage, right? Refresh.
I think it's local storage or clear local storage something.
Yeah, I just figured it out. It is clear. You only have this box. You have this box. If you press plus, it'll go through each setting. Whatever setting is not set, it'll go to that setting.
Okay.
That one is correlated to the code. I'm just gonna jump around for now because that's like an isolated case. In dom.js, anything related to the DOM or the layout of the page is in dom.js. That is called a new section. You see in a new section, it actually checks the HTML, see if that section username, horoscope playlist, see which one doesn't have any HTML. If it doesn't have any HTML, then it opens the model. Notice here, when it opens the name model, it's a models.yourname.open. If you move your mouse over the name button, it's the same thing as if you're clicking that name setting, because if you move your mouse over it, you'll notice that there's an on-click handler on this button, and it's the same code, models.yourname.open. Now you're gonna ask, how was that set up in your code, right? It was set up to a function called init models, initialize models, and it's under dom.js because it's related to a layout. Anything related to a layout is under dom.js.
Okay.
This is the code. This is straight out from Materialize CSS documentation. Right.
Mhm.
Each one here is the individual models, like models dash your dash name. That's actually, if you go to index.html, that's where all my layout is. If you search for the ID, Robert, model dash your dash name, model dash your dash name, it'll jump to that section in index.html. And this is the individual code the HTML code that's asking you for your name. How do you want to be called? Your name, and then this is the input. So that's why when you click this button or that button name, it's gonna open name because we don't have a name section yet. It's a blank HTML. Click it, it opens it. How do you want to be called? Your name.
Okay.
Yeah. And then there's a save button, right? That's very important because if you go back to HTML for that model, there is an on-click save display name. And then in here, you pass it the value. So I took a shortcut. Instead of having JavaScript find, like query select this text field, I do query select that text field inside the on-click line.
Oh, okay. That was like similar to the on submit thing that I was showing.
Yes, yes. I took a lot of shortcuts because I was in the flow state. If I open another file, do query select, save that as another variable, I gotta be creative with the variable name. It's gonna break my flow state. So save display name, you're gonna ask, where does that go to? One possibility you think might be dom.js because it's kind of related to a layout because there's a save button. But where I put it is under local storage.js. The reasoning for putting it at local storage.js is because I'm thinking this is related to local storage. It's gonna save this information to local storage so that next time you open the web page, it'll load the information or render it.
That makes
Yeah,
Okay.
so that's why I organize it like that. Save display name is under local storage. Anything related to the save button goes to local storage because they're saving at local storage as well. Now let's test it. I save as Wang, automatically it says greetings Wang. If you refresh the page, I'm gonna refresh the page, it persistently shows you my name, right? And you're asking, how does it know that you just saved the name and then it's time to render it? How does it know that you have the information and it'll render it in the beginning of page? You imagine there's two functions, right? One is to render it right away after after you, I'm gonna name it Steve. Right after you press the save, you need to call a function to add this code. I create a function so it's just easier, you know. This
Mhm.
can just refer to that function, that block of code. The other block of code that's related is when you refresh the page or when you visit the page, it also needs to render it, right? So it's like two different functions. How the rendering works is actually, I took a shortcut. Instead of having two functions, I have something called sit interval, right? What sit interval does is every 20 milliseconds. It's very, very fast, but it's not going to put you in an infinite loop. Okay, don't worry about that. It'll check if the HTML is blank. This front username means the front page username. This is front username. If you inspect,
Yeah.
what you actually see is front username. If it's blank inside, then check. Well, then try to render it. Rendering is also in local storage because if you're gonna render it, you're gonna check if it's inside local storage. You're rendering from local storage, right? So it checks if it's blank every 20 milliseconds. If it's blank, check, for example, you're rendering the name, display name I call it, then check if there is such an item in local storage. If there is an item, then you render it. So with this code, as long as after you save it, it goes to local storage, you're fine. Because every 20 milliseconds, regardless of whether or not you just press the save button or it's the first time loading the page, it checks if the HTML is blank. If it's blank, then it'll check if it's in local storage. If there's something in local storage, then you render it. You get the two checks? There are two other sections. There's the horoscope. And check if the horoscope section is blank. It's blank because there's no HTML here for horoscope.
Yeah, and then the playlist is blank because there's no playlist right there.
And it's blank. So it calls the render, and the render function checks local storage. Remember, local storage saves the information in your browser for I don't know how long, probably days, who knows. But it checks if it's there. If there's something there, then it'll render it. There's nothing in the HTML for horoscope or playlist, and there's nothing in the local storage, so it won't render anything. It's not costly. It won't slow down your browser. It's just doing checks. That's the logic of it.
Okay.
Every 20 milliseconds, it's doing this check.
Yeah, I just made up a number.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do most websites have this? Like, or most?
I think this is more like a hack attempt. Most websites will do it the long way I told you.
Okay.
Like after you click the save button, it'll render right away. And then when you load the page, it'll check and render right away. Here, I have it every 20 milliseconds. So as long as you save it, or if there's something, it'll render it right away. So it's easier to conceptualize, you know what I mean? There's less code involved.
Okay.
Yeah, I always do like little hack attempts. Yeah. Work smarter, not harder. Let's see. Okay, let's go through the horoscope. So there's a birthday. Select whatever date, save. Playlist. So with playlist, actually, it's a little different. Notice each module, like you have one page. How do you want to be called? Your name, save, that's it. Horoscope, what's your birthday? You set it, you save it, that's it. But playlist has 2 pages. So you gotta pay attention to how that code works too. So pretty much how that works, if you inspect the code for this model, there's actually 2 blocks of code inside the playlist model. There's page 1, the class is P1, and then there's page 2, the class is P2. I added the class hide in page 2. What that does is set display to none. right? After you're done with page one, when you press, I accidentally closed it off. Hold up. Oh God, this is confusing. I click playlist. After I click next, you need to have a name like Halsey. You'll go to page two. Guess what? Page one is now hidden. CP1, hide.
Okay.
So display is now none. Page two is no longer none. So that's how I implemented the two-page system. For that to work, remember the button? There was a button called next, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you'll want to inspect. Well, let me go through this again. Save, playlist. You'll want to inspect the next button. Instead of next, it's called save. In here, you got save artist page one. It's gonna go to the local storage, right? Because whatever artist you select, it's gonna go, and then the related artists eventually go to local storage. So save artist page one is under local storage. You just do Command F or edit find. In here, you type it, you search it, it'll jump to that section. First, it check if the user enter artist name. You see here message. If they didn't, you tell the user that they still need to enter a musician name. So let's just leave this area blank. Instead of Halsey, it's blank. You save it. Let's say error, enter a musician name, right? If you have a musician name, notice the value is length equals 0. If you have a musician name, it won't return from this function. You get to keep going.
Okay. And this is in jQuery, right?
Yeah, it's all in jQuery. We can change, but TJ just said it's okay to use.
Yeah,
jQuery.
it's totally fine.
Yeah. Notice there's P1, right? After I'm done with the page one, when it asks for the musician name, I'm gonna add the class hide to page one. So page one is gonna disappear, as far as we know from the user's perspective. And
Okay.
it's gonna go to the next element. This code here in jQuery is sweet. It goes to whatever element is next. So if I show you right here, this element is P1, right? Has a class of P1. The next class is P2. The way you structure the code so that the next page is all in its own div block. So from P1, you can go to the next element, which will be P2, and then remove the class hide. So P1 will have hide, and then the next element over, because it's in the same level, right? They're siblings. They're siblings, they're brothers and sisters. You'll remove the P2.
Okay.
Doing it in the HTML here
Is P2 a child of P1?
P2 is not a child. It's like a sibling. It's right next to each other. So that's what next does. That's probably the jQuery function that we don't really. I'm not sure we used it in class. That's why I had to show that.
Yeah.
And then from here, you grab the artist name, which you got from page one, right? But you don't have to refer to page one because that text field has its own ID. That's why I just refer to it right away.
Okay.
See what I mean?
Dot val, that's value, right?
Yeah, that's value.
Okay.
Just like in JavaScript, it would be document query selector.
Yeah. Okay.
It's too much to type, so I prefer jQuery with this.
Yeah, it's so much leaner.
Yeah, jQuery is like even less than half of what you have to type in JavaScript. So yeah, screw that.
And all it is the $sign and it targets the whatever HTML that you have, the ID of artist.
Yeah, exactly.
I get that. I get jQuery.
Yeah, JavaScript is like, it's just too much vocabulary and spelling to remember, So you gotta remember spelling, query selector, whatever. Not the spelling necessarily, the vocabulary. All right, the next tricky thing is probably the dumb render artists and the Spotify client credentials flow related artists. That's when we start getting to the API, Stephanie. So Once you got the artist name, you're gonna pass it to the API, and the API is gonna get the related artists. This notation here is called destructuring, and I'll show you why I use it.
Is that like getting a global variable?
That's like taking variables from inside an object.
Okay.
I'll show you what it means. So if I'm using the right vocabulary, destructuring object. They just do it some other way. They did it from array. So pretty much, just to say I have an array, right?
Yeah.
Some array, and inside has first, second, third. If you do it like this, it's the same thing as saying first, look at the address bar equals sum array dot first, second equals sum array dot second.
Oh, okay.
Oh, it's plucking the variable names, the objects, it's plucking the properties out as variables. So this here is similar to saying, oh my mouse is acting funky. Var artist name equals some object dot artist name. I'm plucking it out. Var related artists dot equals some object dot related artists. So what it basically, this API returns an object that has artist name and related artists. I'm not putting them into variables so that I can use whatever's in the, I can, so I can pass.
Yeah, I get what you're trying to do.
Yeah, I know. It's very hard to explain code, Just like TJ said when he was trying to explain extend. Now the API, Robert, there's a related artists. So the API, you don't need to know in details. It's pretty much done. But at Spotify, it's more complicated than the other APIs. So you send in the artist name, and then you're gonna get an access token based on the password and username. And then with the access token, it proves who you are. Each access token, you need the access token each time you ask information from Spotify. You have the artist name. You got to convert it to an artist ID. That's an ID that Spotify gives. And then with the ID, it's stupid. You need to ask Spotify for any artist that's related to that artist ID.
Okay.
So that's how it connects from the artist name you enter, your favorite artist, to all the related artists. In the end, it returns a, so anytime you see console.group, anything starting with console you can ignore. That's just things that go out to the console you can for debugging, but for looking at variables. Now, how this works is at the very end, you get related artists. It's probably like an array of all the related artists. And then you return it, right, from this function. Mm-hmm. And then, so you grab it, artist name, related artists, and then you pass it to render artists. Render artists is, I see what happened. I probably accidentally changed the code. DOM render artists gets those two variables. Those are under DOM.js. Because at that point, it doesn't even know about the API anymore because you pass it the artist name and the array of artists. So, and it deals more with rendering than it does with API. So I put it under DOM.js. Robert, you know what DOM is?
The direct object. It's the document.
Yes. Okay. You got it.
Yeah,
you got it. As long as it's related to layout.
Yeah.
Good. So inside here, I get the artists. The artist actually is an object. It's an array. The artists are an array of objects that have information about each artist. Mm-hmm. So in there, you got to pluck it out. I plug it out like this. Name is the same thing as var name equals artist.name. Now, href, I can't do that because there's no actual object. There's no actual property called artist.href. the URL to the artist.
Yeah.
That's where you're previewing the individual artist's music. That's the button here, preview music. Inside the artist object, Robert, it's like another object called external URLs, and inside that is a property called Spotify. So that's
This
why
is all so confusing.
I'm sorry, man.
They keep going. No, I'm just saying.
That's fine.
It's
like,
not your code that's confusing. It's just the whole concept of like the objects and another
Yeah,
object.
I know.
and Robert, with design, I mean, we'll be working with like what I'm working with, fetching with the astrology APIs. So Wang, if you want to explain the
Even then, you still need to know this dot notation stuff.
yeah, for
Because
sure.
even in the fetching, depends how complicated your API is. Spotify is complicated because they give you this object, right? And then inside this object has another object, and inside that object might have an array, and in that array there might be several objects. It drove me nuts. So that's why you gotta go like dot.
Keep going.
You use the bracket notation. It really
and then
sucks.
you access the index. I've done this with my tutor.
Yeah, that's basically what this is.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, template, I have to go through how to render the artists here because that's probably the more complicated JavaScript here, Robert. What this works is there's a template artist card that's part of index.html. If you go to it, inside here, it's inside a template tag. Anything inside a template tag does not get rendered on the page. It's not on the page. But you can still grab the HTML in here in JavaScript. So that's what this is. When you call inner.html, notice I switched back to original JavaScript. And inside here, I call a replace function, and that will replace anything that has underscores, underscore ID, underscore, underscore image URL, underscore with what's in the Spotify API. And that's how I render each individual card, because each card is from this template. That's how I do it, Robert.
That's really cool. That's really cool, man.
Wang, did you see that alert?
Where's the alert? Oh, 9 minutes.
Okay.
Maybe we should switch to Google Hangout. Well, it's a bit too late now. I'll try to finish this in 9 minutes. We'll see what we're gonna do. Okay, remember models is an array of models, so you can call open on each one and they will open a model at the bottom, right? I went over app.js. No, I didn't. App.js activates the background that has all these animations that Matt shared with us. Init models is the one that puts everything, make sure this array, this object.
Yeah. We were going over the materialized thing and
got it.
And how it expresses with the M dot.
Okay, you remember that, Robert, right? So that's it. That's really all of that's how the code flows.
And you said that there were different endpoints for the astrology API.
Yeah, that's for your old astrology API.
Okay.
With mine's astrology free,
with yours.
It's just one endpoint.
Okay, cool.
You don't even need a access token.
And I just saw like how you're adding the information to the HTML. Like I saw replace ID with. Can you just scroll up just a little bit?
Yeah,
so
sure.
Where you're replacing the.
That's not how TJ had us do it. How TJ had us do it is we had to create the elements themselves and then append it. This is like a shortcut.
Yeah, right here. Yeah, right here.
It's a shortcut. Because remember, in your HTML, it grabs it as a string, and then you can just replace whatever you need to replace with.
And then class list too. We learned that in our modules.
Where did you declare these, like the variables, like the?
Oh no, that's from the actual API that I pulled off that passed into DOM render artists.
Okay.
Passing the artist name that you type and the related artist is from the Spotify API. And then related artists turn out to actually be an array of objects, each object representing a related artist. And each of those objects has a whole bunch of information we don't need. So we have to individually take out those variables that we need, like the image URL for the artist. That's how we
Okay.
get images for each artist.
You handpick.
That's a matter of doing console log in your browser and looking at the object that the API returns, or reading the documentation from the API, so you know how to pluck it out. Once you pluck it out, you can replace those variables with
Okay.
whatever symbol you use. I use underscore symbols.
Now it's starting to really kind of make sense.
Yeah, this was really good because now I know like what like we're touching and where it's like gonna spit
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome. Thank you so much. I know you're like probably exhausted, Wang, so thank you for taking the time to like go over this with us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
You can read developer.md under the README folder. I'll explain some.